just that first step can get the momentum going, and then give yourself the positive feedback. Be proud of yourself. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with just as humans. Like,
hi, it's Dr. Kien Vu, aka Dr. V, triple board certified MD, and welcome to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. Now, some of you guys have asked me, what am I triple board certified in? Well, great question. Let me answer that now. I am triple board certified in 1, diagnostic radiology, 2, interventional radiology, and 3, anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And if you don't know what those things are, number 1, diagnostic radiology. Radiology, it's the field of medicine that pierces inside the body using advanced imaging technology like X-rays, MRIs, CT scans, ultrasound. We use all these sophisticated technologies to image inside the body to see what disease looks like. So basically what I do is I use image guidance with the radiology part to do minimally invasive surgeries. And finally, anti-aging and regenerative medicine. Why did I go into that? Well, about 5 years ago, I was overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, and I was on prescription medications. And I didn't know this at the time, but I didn't learn how to be well in medical school. And I was really living a life that wasn't aligned to my true self. And so I did a very, very deep dive into nutrition, epigenetics, to reverse all my conditions, and discovered something along the way. Discovered the bioenergetic model of health that really tells us this. It's our actions, it's what we do every day, it's how we show up that actually create this bioenergetic field that speaks to our DNA in a moment-to-moment basis. And that actually instructs our DNA either go into states of optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, what I call the thrive state, or puts us into these inflammatory states, which is the stress or survive state. And, I went into that, medicine of longevity and performance because I myself was sick. But after rediscovering myself and rediscovering ancient wisdom and the advanced technologies to make us younger, to make us more authentic of more of who we are, I feel like I needed to share this message with the world, which is why I wrote my book, Thrive State, which is why I have the Thrive State podcast. So if you're new here, that's who I am. I'm Dr. V. Welcome. I would appreciate it a lot if you're feeling this episode, if you're feeling my energy, if you are enjoying the value that you think you're going to be getting from this podcast, go ahead, subscribe, hit the notification button so that you won't miss any episodes in the future. I want to hear from you and I want to engage with you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. For those who have listened to the Thrive State podcast before, welcome back. This is yet another awesome episode that I'm really excited about. Now, this episode was a little bit different. This episode, we actually did it live over Instagram, took a few questions as we went along with a very special guest. Now, I know so many people are still feeling the stresses of the pandemic, whether there's stresses from work or there's stresses from the fear of the virus itself. Many people I know are constantly telling me, how do I start to relieve some of this stress? Now, stress, as some of you may know, is really the root cause of a lot of disease, because stress tells our body that, it signals to our body that we're in danger. And what happens is stress hormones start to surface in our body. And that's when we release things like IL-1, IL-6, other inflammatory markers. And what that does is it raises inflammation, will lower our immune system, and that puts us prone to getting chronic symptoms and chronic disease. So if we don't keep that stress on check, we're basically going down the road of chronic disease. And that's where I was before. And so it's really important to have a few tools in the tool belt. And, that's what this podcast is. It's about having some additional tools so that you can really own your health again. And on today's podcast, I welcome somebody who I respect so much because she's really created a beautiful brand. She actually tells us that we don't actually have to sacrifice our health in order to become successful. All right. She is a physician assistant, a integrative medicine fellow. She is also a speaker, wellness expert, and I really treasure all of her content because she really teaches people how to live well and how to live greatly. And I wanted to bring her on because she has just some really practical tools that you could use if you're starting to feel something come up in you, if you're starting to feel that stress. How do you start to incorporate some of these techniques you're going to learn on this episode to actually mitigate that so that you could live great as well? In fact, she's actually the host of the Live Greatly podcast. You could find her all over social media, and you could check out her website, livegreatly.co. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen her on Forbes, you've seen her on multiple magazines, you've seen her live on the ABC Morning News. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Crystal Bauer.
Welcome to the Thrive State Podcast, Crystal Bauer.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Vu.
Crystal Bauer, for the people who don't quite know who you are yet, can you give us a two-liner?
Ooh, a two-liner. Pressure's on. Okay, so I am a wellness expert, integrative medicine fellow. I was a physician. I practiced as a physician assistant for a long time before starting my company, Live Greatly. And you and I are in alignment on a lot of things. So I'm super pumped to talk today. I have a podcast. I'm a speaker, consultant, all that good stuff.
Yeah, she showed up everywhere on Forbes. I mean, she's really a beacon of light in this wellness space.
Aww.
And just so that you guys can get a chance to know her a little bit more, we're going to play 5 to Thrive. 5 quick questions, all less than a minute answer, and they're worth 1,000 points each. So I really hope she gets these questions right.
Ooh.
Are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive, Crystal?
I think so. I was up early this morning, so if I get one wrong, it's because I woke up at 3:45 a.m. Just putting that out there.
Well, since these are all personal questions, I
hope
you
okay.
get them right.
Okay,
So,
good.
Question number 1 in the 5 to Thrive. What is your favorite activity to do as a child?
Ooh, as a child, let me think about that. I loved going to Myrtle Beach. That was one of my favorite things as a family vacations. We would travel. And we'd just be by the beach, go to the pool, run around outside, just play, no worries in the world. That was amazing.
Amazing. 1,000 points. Question number 2. What's your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book. I honestly don't think I can say one specific book. I've learned from a lot of different books that I've read. Recently, I read one that I really liked by Ellen Bennett. So she was on my podcast. She sent me her book to read, and I really, really enjoyed that. But I mean, I get so many great books from people that come on my show, so I feel inspired. I mean, I have to read your book.
Sounds good. We'll make sure we get you a copy. All right.
Awesome.
The last one from Ellen Bennett. Question number 3. Remember, really short answer only because we have a chunk of material, but what is probably one of the challenges you've been through in life and the gift it's given you after going through that challenge?
Okay. Let me think about this. Gosh, I mean, I feel like all challenges we learn, right? So the one specifically that I'm thinking about is I used to be super afraid of public speaking. And I had this anxiety and this fear about being judged and being making a mistake or looking stupid, like all of these internal fears that I feel like most people can relate to in one way or another. And it took me leaning into that fear and getting myself out of my comfort zone to overcome it. So I'm very appreciative for that learning lesson to be able to get myself to where I am today.
Oh, beautiful. What is one of your favorite self-care biohacks that you do regularly? Question number 4. So far, you're doing great. 1,000 points.
Thank you. And just backtracking, Ellen Bennett's book is Dream First, Details Later. So that was, I didn't say the name of the book. Okay, so I do a lot of self-care stuff, but one thing that I absolutely love is being in nature. I love running outside. I love going for walks outside. I love going on hikes. I love travel. I feel like nature is the greatest gift. And, some people, I like to meditate. Some people, maybe they don't want to meditate. Maybe they don't want to do that kind of stuff. But I feel like nature is the universal wellness tool that we all, have access to in one way or another.
Oh, fantastic. And the last question here. So far, 4,000 points. For the last one to round it off. Last question is, how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as someone who loved her family and made a positive impact on the world.
Oh, thank you very much. 5 out of 5 on your 5 to Thrive, 5,000 points. You win dinner with me the next time you're in LA. And I see my trainer, Eric, the trainer, we have a 1:00 appointment. So Eric, I'm going to be a little bit late
Oops,
to our appointment. All good. But this way, I was going to text him anyway, but since he joined, there you have it. So
perfect.
Kristel, I know you were working with patients before you were in integrative psychiatry. Can you give us a brief synopsis as to why you're starting to leave that and why you're inspired, to pivot into this new journey that you're on now?
Yeah, good question. So honestly, I went into being a physician assistant, PA school. I wanted to help people. I was going back and forth between med school, PA school, and I went the PA route because I felt like, okay, there's a little bit more balance there. I can do the family thing. I can have without all of the debt. And I did that, and I kind of went through, I don't want to say went through the motions, but like it didn't always feel like it was enough. I didn't feel totally satisfied. I felt like there was something missing. Like I think there's this vision of like, oh, you go into medicine and you help people and like, it feels really good to help people. It just, but there's like a flip side to it too. It's really, there's a lot of hard moments. So I think that led me down this path of getting into integrative medicine because I kind of did the more Western, a little bit more traditional stuff. And then I wanted to expand. So I got trained by Dr. Andrew Weil, did his fellowship. I was working in integrative psychiatry. I was learning a ton. And I really liked teaching. I started doing university lecturing. I was like, this is really neat. I'm talking to this group of people. And I leave, I feel good. I leave, I'm like invigorated. I'm excited versus a lot of the days in the office, I would go home feeling drained. And like, it was tough. So that for me was like, I was listening to that internal, I guess, that tap on the shoulder, like, maybe this isn't the right path. Maybe there's a different path. And I just kind of leaned into that and I started to explore that and figured out like I wanted to talk to a bigger audience. I didn't want the one-on-one. I wanted something else. And I just kind of explored that. And I started my show. I started the speaking and consulting, and it's just grown and developed over the past 2 years. It's been really cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things I loved hearing from you is hearing that, sort of internal compass going, I'm not feeling it here, but I'm getting lit up doing something else. And I find that is something that we need to learn to listen to because I would probably say I shared a very similar path. I went into medicine, conventional medicine, started a practice, and I had forgotten the things that used to light me up. And I feel like so many people, when their kids taught, hey, that's not the right career for you, or yes, it brings you joy, but it's not going to bring home any money. And you start hearing those things and we start to forget. So, one of the other people, right before you came on earlier was talking about, feeling fatigued from feeling stress. And when you had mentioned all this, one of the things I find is a great stress reliever is just start to understand the things that just normally light you up and that bring you joy and just to do more of that. Yeah.
I totally agree. And that was something I would talk to patients a lot about in integrative psychiatry, because I would see people who they just lost their spark, and it was, on paper, they had a good life. They were financially successful. They had the career, they had the family, but they just weren't feeling that spark. So part of the conversations I would have was like, well, what used to really light you up? What's the last thing you can remember that you did or that happened that like got you really excited? And I think people just sometimes, they lose themselves, or they get off the beaten track, or they get off path a little bit in the stressors of day-to-day life. So reflecting, taking time to kind of come back to that internal compass, to listen to it and to add that fun, I think is so important.
Yes. Now, do you have some practical things that, some people are so far removed. And I remember when I first started, to say to myself, hey, wow, I'm overweight, I'm diabetic, and I don't find like my life is fun anymore.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like I knew what was step one. Are there tips that you have for the people that are out there as to how to start to cultivate that if you're, in a state where you're not feeling like lit up, when you're not feeling that way? What might be one of the first things people can do to kind of like tap back into that state of bliss?
Sure. I'd say take baby steps. Big goals are great. However, you set that big goal, then you don't accomplish it, and you're like, oh, I'm not good at this. Oh, I can't do it. Or, it can hold you back sometimes depending on your personality. So I think just setting a really approachable goal, and it could be like 5 minutes today, for 5 minutes, I'm going to go for a walk outside. Or, I'm going to call a friend today. I haven't talked to a friend in a while. I'm going to make an effort. So picking something like whatever area you want to work on and just doing a really small thing and then building from there. I feel like sometimes just that first step can get the momentum going, and then give yourself the positive feedback. Be proud of yourself. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with just as humans. Like, we're hard on ourselves. So be proud of yourself for the progress you make, and don't expect everything to happen overnight. It takes time, and be kind to yourself on the journey. Just start with these little baby steps.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself, so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
What I love in terms of what you just said here were a few things. Number one, when you're wanting to just sort of get out of the activation energy, is just to find something that's very easy and small enough to do. If it looks like a big task, your brain's going to jump in and say, I can't do that. But make it really simple to yourself. And then if you do that one little task, and if you could, the holistic psychologist, Nicole LePera, talks about keeping small promises to yourself. If you can pick that simple task and you achieve it, one, celebrate it, because you're going to basically build up, goodwill points to yourself, and that's going to pick up the energy. And trust me, once you do these little tiny things a little bit over and over again, you'll start to see the shift happening. So thank you for sharing that. Now I want to dive into one of the questions that the audience members asked not too long ago. Was they were feeling a lot of fatigue from stress. And they were like, okay, well, I've got a lot of fatigue from this stress. How do I counteract the fatigue? And for me, I was like, hey, let's handle the stress. But how would you answer that question?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. Yes, 100% handle the stress. I would want to know what their lifestyle's like. Are they exercising? Are they meditating? What are they eating? Because I think food is a huge piece of the puzzle. If you're eating really inflammatory foods throughout the day and you're drinking tons of coffee throughout the day, you're going to have highs and lows. You're going to feel tired. But yeah, definitely manage the stress. And then I'm thinking about too, just like, maybe seeing a practitioner like yourself, like figure out what's going on. Yeah. I know when I was in practice, we would use a lot of different supplements that could help potentially with energy, but you always want to talk to your provider about that. But, things like ashwagandha and different adaptogens.
So really good. I tell people this, when I talk about, my book, Thrive State, we've got our physical energy, our mental energy, our emotional energy, and our spiritual energies are all connected. And if we find that our emotional energy is off or we're thinking bad things, do the simple things. Go to the physical thing. Hack your physical. Because if you could change things in your physical routine, whether it be sleep better, exercise more, have a better diet, that thing's going to shift. And it's going to shift the way you feel, and it's going to shift the way you think as well. So that's a really, really great point. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are still feeling the effects of stress, whether it be deciding whether or not to get the vaccine or not, That's a very, very heated debate. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of tension that is in the air right now. What would you say would be some very, I want to give some people some practical tools. So
Sure.
I know we mentioned a lot of different things, but do you have some favorites that you wouldn't mind sharing, whether it be, a method of breathing or, a biohack that you like to use to
Yeah.
really kind of master all this, negativity that's going on in the air, and how do you find yourself back at
Oh,
peace?
such a good question. So, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I resort to going for a walk outside. And I think if you have that accessible to you, doing a mindful walk, so incorporating
Mm,
mindfulness and meditation into your walk can be extremely beneficial. And here's one of the problems if you have a really active mind and you're trying to meditate is that sometimes can make you not feel like you're not doing a good job, or it can be hard for some people to sit quietly and to meditate. So I feel like if you are in a state of like fight or flight, or you're anxious or you're overwhelmed, that you need movement. That's my
yeah,
thought process on
yeah.
it. So going for a walk outside and just taking in everything around you. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel? What do you
Mm,
taste? Anchor into your body and do that for 10, 15 minutes. You're going to come home feeling like a new person. It's
yeah.
simple, simple stuff, but it's bringing you back to the present moment, calming down your brain waves. Because when we're anxious and stressed, we have lots of beta waves. Then you can get into this kind of calm flow state. You're in the present moment, more alpha waves. Then you're going to feel it. You're going to feel better.
Oh, that's great. Just to let people know, there is so much data. If you go out in nature, there is actually stuff in the air, in
Yeah.
the nature sphere, that actually relaxes your body, puts you more in a parasympathetic state. And like you said, tapping into your senses, right? Hear, touch, feel, taste, smell, focusing on that and not focusing on maybe a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the negative chatter that's in our brain. Great technique. I'm 50, menopause just started, and I think university too. Well, congratulations, Deb, who's trying on something new in life. What's another tip? So nature walks and being
Mm-hmm.
mindful is great. What's something else that people could tangibly use?
Okay, so our breath is always with
Yeah.
us. So that's something that a really, really simple one. You don't have to remember, hold for this long, breathe in for this long. Well, I like those, but something super simple is just belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, where you can relax your body. A lot of times when we're stressed, we clench our muscles, we can clench our
Yeah.
abdomen, and we can breathe shallowly. So just like relax your muscles, relax your belly, and breathe through your belly for a little while, which will activate the vagus nerve, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and start to get you feeling a little bit more relaxed. And this is something that I used a lot while I was in clinical practice seeing patients. If
Mm.
you're talking, so if you're at work, you're at a stressful call, you're on the phone with your boss and you're getting yelled at, or who knows, or you're stressed with your kids, actively make an effort to relax your muscles and just start breathing from your belly. And that's a really great one that I think is accessible to everybody.
Really, really simple. All this stuff is
Yes.
free. Go for a walk in nature. Breathe some more. This is all super good stuff. Now, are you a big meditator, Crystal?
I do. However, I'm not like a master meditator where I can sit for like an hour and get into the Zen place.
Yeah.
Like I am honestly more of someone who I like moving meditation.
Yeah.
It's challenging for me to sit and be calm and just focus on my breath for 20 minutes. Like my
Yeah.
mind starts to want to
Yeah.
focus on
Yeah.
this and that and this and that. So I
Right.
practice. I
Right.
sit every morning and I sit in the evening, and I just that's my kind of calming down my nervous system, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of prayer. It's just my time. So
Yeah.
I like taking time for myself. So I think for people, whatever that looks like for you, if you can sit and you can meditate for, 5 minutes, start there and build from there, that's incredible. And I really look at these people who can meditate for like an hour and just be totally in the zone. I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
the reason I ask that is because, I can't do that either. And so, there's so many gurus out there that talk about meditation. And I know I'm not somebody that can do that. And I'm glad you're not either. Because, I think for some, they're like, okay, well, I can't get to that space and I'm just going to give up on it completely. which is why I love what you said, is you can do that walking meditation where you don't have to sit quiet, and where you give yourself the opportunity to be present with your senses and not in your mind. So that's a great thing. And another great thing you just said was, you give yourself 5 minutes, or hell, give yourself 2 minutes. But if you could just give that time to yourself, don't create something, huge, even if you're doing a big habit, like, wanting to work out again for the first time. Don't set an hour in the gym. Start with 5 minutes, start with 2 minutes. So that's really, really great. All these people are loving these tips here. I would probably say next, the people here are really wanting to sort of dive a little bit more into, we talked about this a little bit, which is like diving, into bliss and joy. And
Sure.
you talked about maybe remembering, things that you used to like to do in the past. Do you have any additional sort of techniques to kind of like help people change states quickly?
I think a lot of this comes down to our perspective. So something I personally like to do is it's easy to get caught up into negative thinking of I'm not good enough, or all the negative self-talk, which is a human thing. But if I find myself feeling like in a funk or just not my best, I'm kind of like, I'm curious about it. I'm like, I wonder what this is about. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Maybe it's this, whatever. But one thing I do is, if it's because I'm frustrated about a situation, or I have a belief or a thought that just doesn't serve me, I'll ask myself, how can I view this in a way that empowers me? And that question to myself gets me out of it, because I'm like, there are more ways to view this. I'm viewing it. The reason I'm frustrated or upset or in a funk is because I'm viewing this in a way that doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
So I think that using that as a tool, and then coming back to the present moment as well, asking yourself kind of cognitive behavioral therapy type stuff. Like, is this true? Is this true and useful to me in this moment? That's one that Dr. David Rabin was on my show, and he uses that one. So I think there's all these little, I wouldn't call them tricks, but tools you can use to help you kind of reframe things to be more supportive for yourself.
That's a great question. I mean, I just wanted to sum up what you stated, but so important. We've got these negative thoughts that sit. I want to do another podcast about this default mode network, but we've got these thoughts and beliefs that we pick up as kids, and we don't think about them. And a lot of them are going to be negative. But here's the thing: is those thoughts are not you. Those are old programming, and to know that you don't have to believe everything you think is key. And once you could start to be curious as to what this thought is, and then decide, oh, okay, that thought's not making me feel good. I actually do have a choice to maybe think something to shift the way I feel. That's a very, very powerful thing. So having the awareness, number one, that you don't have to believe all the thoughts that you think is so key. Now, I don't know if you have an answer to this next question. I certainly have my beliefs on it, but what is your feeling about meat in terms of nutrition?
So what is about with meat? So I feel like it's a very unique thing. I was not eating meat for a while. I was pescatarian, so I was eating fish. But I then felt, I'm very active. I exercise a lot. I run a lot. I was craving it. I was wanting it. And I was, and to be honest, I wasn't the best with eating tofu and tempeh and all that stuff. So I started to eat chicken again. And I think it's a very personalized choice. But if you do eat meat, I would say just try and have a lot of meat-free days. So I think eating a lot of plants is a very, very good thing for your health. And then if you are eating meat, pay attention to what you're eating. And, when I eat meat, I try and do organic when I can. And if you're eating steak or beef, grass-fed, I don't eat beef. I know you do, because you, on my show, I think that was one of the things you would bring to a deserted island. I remember.
So I felt the same way. I was actually a vegan for about 6 months, and I went from a standard American diet to vegan. So initially I felt really good. And then when I was starting to work out, I found that I was craving it, and I didn't feel as good. And that's just sort of how I felt. Everyone's got a different thing, ethically as to, whether or not which diet is. But I would say this: listen to your body. And if you are going to eat meat, try to have it, from sustainably, raised sources. If you do eat meat, grass-fed, grass-finished meats, chicken that are pasture-raised. Certainly, I'm a true believer that animal protein is slightly superior because it contains leucine. So that's it. That wasn't a mind-body type of question, but it showed up here today 5 times, so I figured we should address it. Well, thank you so much. These are all, what I love about what you had shared with us today is these are techniques that we can use day in, day out. We don't have to pay a lot of money for it. They're accessible. They're very easy to access. So put that to use. Remember, go for a walk out in nature. Pay attention to your senses, pay good attention to breathing, because if you could focus on your breath, you really tap into that parasympathetic nervous system. So thank you for those tips. Now, before I get to the very last question, where do people find you and your stuff?
Sure. So people can check out all the things I'm up to on my website, which is www.livegreatly.co. And they can check out my podcast, Live Greatly. It's on all different platforms. And Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, all that good stuff.
Oh, great. Well, hey, you guys need to follow Kristel Bauer at Live Greatly. With everything that you've done so far, my last question to you is this. What has been your best medicine?
Ooh, my best medicine. I think my best medicine has been developing more self-love. I think it comes down to loving yourself. And that is not always an easy thing to do. So really nurturing that and developing that.
Beautiful. Well, Kristel Bauer, thank you so much for being on the Thrive State podcast. I hope you'll come on and join us again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
Super, super fun. Remember always, you are your best medicine. Kristel, thank you again.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.